are going to have a series of speakers, but we couldn't let this salon go by without addressing what happened this week. So Bob's going to talk about that a little bit first before our first speaker.
Well, again, a lot of what happened was utterly predictable. That is, many of us that have been on the in the election integrity movement, and those of us that have observed the state capitol here in Ohio and elsewhere, is that this notion of illiberalism of been with us for a long time, particularly since the
wait a minute.
Civil War.
Were we muted up until now?
No, you're good. You're good.
I'm sorry.
Those things flip around to admit somebody and it mute instead it muted you. So my bad. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So start with your sentence that you were just saying.
Well, again, this is carried over from the Civil War, as we well know. And those of you who saw the Stars and Bars, the flag of the Confederacy, flying in the Capitol with the first major open revolt, probably since the Whiskey Rebellion, indigenous revolt other than a civil war. So when we think about this, a lot of this really goes back to World War II and to the Dixiecrats. Remember 1968, George Wallace using a lot of rhetoric very similar to Donald Trump. And there's a lot of other factors that we ought to consider. One's economic nationalism, right? The fact that Bill Clinton and Al Gore decided to create a new Democratic Party, one that was corporatist and engaged, neoliberal, would go worldwide in trade. So you had two parties of free trade. You no longer had the party, the Democratic Party of FDR. So with that in mind, one thing that came forward was economic nationalism, right? A notion that American workers should have American jobs. Perhaps the most successful person that argued that was Ross Perot as a third party candidate who got 19% of the votes. Let's have jobs in America. So a lot of these problems, a lot of these complaints, a lot of these issues were never really resolved, which paved the way, for a right-wing authoritarian demagogue to create literally a cult of personality. If you read anything about Trump, many of you will know that Michael Cohen's book is actually great, his political fixer, his quote, Roy Cohn, so to speak. But he says, look, Trump's basic philosophy is he believes in oligarchs. He believes in inherited wealth. The people he worships are those with no opposition that own complete power like Putin or Kim Jong-un. And Cohen, if you read the book, written, well before the election, pointed out that he wasn't going to leave. He goes, when it comes time to leave, he's simply not going to leave. And he also pointed out repeatedly that the base that worshiped Trump really was very similar, white supremacists. Those of you who remember Charlottesville when he said there was good people on both sides, but that they had created a cult of personality. And many people, many far right people, many white supremacists ended up, being prepared to take advantage of what Cohen and many predicted, that Trump wasn't going to go, that he was going to stay for a second term and simply say whatever he needed to, no matter how counterfactual, in order to stay in office.
So what we're hearing is that on January 17th, there's supposed to be another huge, the largest armed, peaceful protests in every state capital in the country, including Washington, D.C. And that's actually next Sunday, not tomorrow, but next Sunday. And would not be surprised if something happens here at the Capitol. And I don't know what to expect, but I don't expect it's going to be peaceful.
No, and it's real clear, those of you who are watching closely, is that they were totally unprepared at the Capitol. The police were absolutely unprepared, and some were sympathetic
empowering
to the people coming in.
Of the protesters.
So again, this has been encouraged by Trump as well, you know, that we're pro-police. So a lot of things happening.
Yeah, above and beyond all the national news, we did still, since our last Salon, have 2 more Black men shot by police. There's obviously a lot of racism in our police department. There's a lot of racism still going on in the world, in our city. And our first speaker tonight is from Standing Up for Racial Justice. Sorry, Standing Up for Racial Justice, SURJ, Ohio. And her name is Ginnie, and I'm not sure how to say last name. Is it Vogts?
Yes, hi, Ginnie Vogts. And thank you very much. Hi, shall I just start?
Yeah, so you just go right ahead and speak, and if people have questions, they can type them into the chat or raise their hand, or we can give them a little time at the end.
Okay, that's great.
Question.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. I've been to your salons a few times, and I see some familiar faces, so it's very nice to be with you this evening. Of course, I can't get the incident on Wednesday out of my mind, as none of us can, the images and the horror. But I have to say, I don't think it began with Trump. He's put gasoline on the fire, but I think it's, you know, deep-rooted and long-standing. As you mentioned, you referenced all those historical dates. And I think that we will see a lot more of it before this is over. And so, as most of us are white people here, but not all. However, we're all of us asking ourselves, what should we do about this? You know, what is our role, and how can we go forward? Showing Up for Racial Justice is a nationally organized group. There are chapters all throughout the country. It was founded in 2009. It was the chapter in Columbus started in 2015 and really took off when Donald Trump was elected. We have been organizing white people to work together for racial justice and work together with organizations of color. So we have a network, we have a small leadership group, we have accountability partners, groups of people of color in the community that we work with and support, and what they are doing, we want to help with. We're very concerned about the police brutality in Columbus. We've been working with the People's Justice Project, with Be Quick, with the Columbus Freedom Fund. We have good relationships with others, maybe not as closely, but our interest and our effort is to educate ourselves, educate others, have actions in support of those groups that I mentioned, and in an effort to organize and bring in more white people so that we begin to dismantle white supremacy. Our vision is that we envision a society where we struggle together with love for justice, human dignity, and a sustainable world. And I basically paraphrase the mission. And we've got a set of values that are pretty, I think they're very soulful. What we hope to do is to be in the community, having more people coming to join us, and be in action with the groups of color that are standing up for justice. for racial justice. So I want to, one of the benefits of being in a national organization is we can learn from each other. And so there are lots of opportunities for amazing webinars through the National SURJ organization. There's also an Ohio SURJ, which is statewide. And then there are SURJ chapters in many different communities. I'm going to put in the chat a way to get connected with us if anybody is interested. This is the link to the Twitter, the Facebook, and there is a digest, like a weekly digest that comes out every Sunday with all the events that we know about that we're going to participate in or suggest that people do. And you can, if you sign up for the Action Network, you can get that. So I'm really interested in having an interactive discussion with people. So I'd love to hear some opinions or questions, or answer some questions if there are any.
Could you tell us some of the actions that SURJ has been doing, like just since the past year and since the George Floyd murder?
Oh, of course, yes. We have been out in the streets and calling for people to be out in the streets during the summer. Many of us were downtown getting tear gassed. We have been supporting an effort in Lyndon to by the people of Lyndon to suppress or to work on the gun violence that's been happening there, supporting financially. We've moved some money. When the first stimulus check was sent out, we organized an effort to recruit people to give their money to organizations, Black-led organizations throughout the state. And we're doing that again. There's on our Facebook page, there is another campaign for people who can give that money away to support the Black-led organizations. We were at Oberlin Road, I think it was, in Upper Arlington a couple of Saturdays ago after, or maybe it was a Tuesday, I'm not sure, calling for white people. This is the road where Andre Hill was murdered. We were calling for white people to stop calling the police on Black people. And that's, we feel very strongly about that. And we need to find alternatives so that when people are afraid, they don't automatically dial 911, or in this case, 311, and we end up with a tragic and unnecessary death. I think one of the first times I was moved to mobilize and be out was when Tyree King was murdered, that 13-year-old boy in 2016. So, it's been unceasing killings, and we have to find a way to stop them. So we've been involved with the, attending the Mayor's Safety Commission and trying to hold the police accountable. But most recently, concerned with the police brutality. We've been trying to get the charges dropped against the young girl who was with the boy who was killed by the
Julius Tate.
Yeah, Julius Tate. Mm-hmm. So we have been gradually building up relationships with different, as I said, groups led by people of color, so that we can be of assistance when those actions are taking place.
And the whole thing about not calling the police, oh my God, everybody from John Crawford in the Kmart or wherever he was.
Yeah, and that was,
Beaver Creek.
Right.
They were from him to Andre Hill, and I mean the guy Kareem Nadir Al
Yes.
Jones. I mean, people really are out of control when it comes to just seeing a Black person and think that there's some kind of danger happening. And I really don't know how you change people's minds to have them not have that fear.
Black people with guns, but coming up next weekend, there'll be 1,000 or so white people with guns.
Exactly.
And they'll get police escorts.
Right, exactly. So I think you know, realizing that that's happening, looking at our own complicity. You know, we are all racist. We don't mean to be. Sometimes we do, but we're all racist. We have been raised in the soup of white supremacy. We breathe it. We don't even realize it. And so that's the first thing we have to do, is begin to start looking at that and be in community together. And I think that we can do many things to change this. We're in a crisis right now, this country. And if white people don't want this to be happening, then we have to dig deep and find ways to help and to put an end to this blindness. Any questions from the other people here?
We had a comment that
Okay, I'm sorry.
it wasn't real clear that Andre Hill was killed by, due to a 311 call. We didn't know that.
Yes.
That's news to us.
Yes.
And somebody also mentioned that maybe, is she referring to the Cleveland SURJ is involved with helping prisoners? Are you aware of that?
I am aware of it. Yes, I'm not sure what the details are, but we have been working with the Columbus Freedom Fund, which provides bail for people of color who have been arrested at protests, and trying, giving money to them and trying to support them.
So if there's no other questions, I have another comment.
Sure.
If people want to, okay, so sometimes, there's Black-led Black Lives Matter groups, and sometimes they say that they want white allies, but they don't want white leadership in their groups. When I say they, there's individuals that are resentful of white people feeling like they should be involved in these matters, but then on the other hand, other individuals believe that white people need to be allies in these matters. And I kind of see SURJ as a group that kind of covers those bases for white people, that if you're a member of SURJ, then you're clearly putting yourself out there as an ally, but you're clearly not trying to take over anything that's going on in a Black Lives Matter group. Is that somewhat of why this group was started?
That's really well put, Suzanne. We believe, first of all, the leadership comes from the Black-led groups. So if they don't want us there, we are not going to go there. A lot of white people tend to take up space and to center themselves and to think that it's about them. And we have to learn not to do that. We have also been asked to put ourselves between the police and the Black bodies with our bodies. And so that is something that when that's appropriate, we do that. I have done that many times. And you'd be amazed at the different reaction from the white cops when a white grandmother is standing there instead of a young Black boy. So that's something that it's not hard. It's really easy to just stand there and be a barrier. But one of the things we were doing in the summertime was helping educate some of the white people not to take over. This is not for them to be in leadership. We certainly had compassion and we were outraged and horrified, but it wasn't our job to center ourselves and to take over. So that's exactly right. We take direction from the leadership of the Black Lives Matter. And we are, by the way, we are also an abolitionist group. We have come to the point of realizing, and not that recently, that the continuation of police as they are is not making communities better for people of color. And so we really believe in abolition, and that does not mean immediately. That's going to take a long time, but we really want to work on that, understand that, and help that happen over time. Moving money to communities. I mean, how many times are we going to reform the police? Right? That reform has not been effective. So we have to do something much different.
So we had a woman speaking a couple months ago, Jasmine Ayers, who's on the Civilian Review Board.
Yes.
Preparatory committee. I don't know if she actually made it onto the Civilian Review Board herself, but she was on the preliminary meeting.
she may be. I'm not sure whether she is or not. Yeah.
But she was having hope, that maybe her voice in that situation was going to help make that civilian review board worthwhile. Do you have any thoughts about the success or failure of that?
Well, I think many civilian review boards without subpoena power are just window dressing. If they have subpoena power, that may help. But I'd like to point out that that is all after the fact, after a tragedy has happened. So, what we're interested in is helping to create communities to prevent some of these harms. But there's so much more than the civilian review board.
So Esther, somebody's got music. Esther, did you have a question? You got to unmute.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Happy New Year's. It's exciting to see some of the familiar faces. Peace, 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 and love. I just wanted to just say I have a concern because I've been very involved in our community as an abolitionist, not only with those who are trafficked, but people who are vulnerable in our communities. And my personal experience is that I have seen, especially last year, I had to defriend some folks from my Facebook because they were racist. I believe that there is one human race, and I have a diverse, I come from a diverse background. My family, my friends, my colleagues, and they're not racist at all. And I understand that politically they're talking about being implicit bias and all of that, but there are people who are genuine, especially in the field that I work with, because a lot of these Black advocates, and I don't like to identify specific races, but since you brought it up, they have not even helped their own people who are homeless, who are in the prison, and it's not justifiable. So I think that a lot of the stuff that we are dealing with it's just been blown out of proportion. And I respect you and I value your work. But it's frustrating to be in a position where we want to help people, but now race has become a big issue. I mean, I was shocked. I was returning on Wednesday from a vacation, and if it wasn't because of a text, I'm like, and when you look at the mob, it was diverse. It was not only white people, there were Black people there too, and women got killed also. So I think that having an organization like yours, we need to promote more unity, more advocacy in our community, and focus on the issues that we're having, because I do have to say, being a Latina, I've been profiled with our officials. And a lot of it is because I'm vocal, and usually what I say is the truth. So I commend you for your efforts, but I just want to say is, I don't feel like I am a racist person.
Oh, no.
I love people. If you look at my friends and my family and what I represent, I'm more about promoting one human race, not the Latinos, not a gender, it's humanity, because everybody here, you guys have a beautiful heart. That's why I love you guys. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, Esther, you're probably the last person I would ever think of to think of as racist. Absolutely. I admire your work tremendously. And when I'm saying we are all racist, I'm talking about we white people who have grown up that way and are trying to change. And racial justice is not the only kind of injustice, obviously. There are many, many other things. And, if we can come together to create a better community, we will all be much better off. But the history of oppression at the hands of white people, the colonialists, indigenous people, I mean, you cannot deny that many, many people have had their lives and their path to survival stolen at the hands of white people. And so we have to own that. We cannot pretend that we are guilt-free. I'm sorry, but that does not cast any aspersion on someone like you. I mean, I totally respect what you say, and I respect your work.
Esther's going to speak. So, excuse me, Esther's going to speak a little bit later too, after Abe gives his presentation. We got Bob Krasen probably with our last question here. Bob,
I want to say something also.
well, wait a minute. Bob was the next one in the queue, but you can be after Bob. Go ahead, Bob.
Jeannie, I'm just so pleased to see you putting
Hi.
another hat on your head.
Hi, Bob.
Followed your work forever with results, and I admire you for taking on a new mission. My question has to do with qualified immunity. Have you heard any discussion anywhere about movement on the issue of qualified immunity, which means that police who take whatever action they take are protected by the law if they cause harm to people? Is there any movement on that at all that you've seen?
Well, it certainly is clearly outlined in their union contract. And that's one of the things we have to tackle. You know, they are highly protected. And until that is changed, nobody in this city is able to touch that. You know, so we have to, and it's coming up, unfortunately, the renewal of the union contract is coming up in December. Well, very soon, very soon. It's already January. I can't believe it. So that is a definite problem, and it is something that gives them, you know, and that doesn't just pertain to police. There are lots of people in official positions that are protected by that. And I mean, I guess you can understand that if every time the mayor opened his mouth, somebody sued him, that would not allow him to function. But in terms of police, it is one of the main problems, and the fact that there is no accountability. You know, until this last election, Ron O'Brien had never indicted a police officer, and I think it was more than 20 years of his history. So I think it's a major problem, and we are definitely interested in policy changing, you know, around this area. I'm not an expert in that, but I certainly know it's on the radar. Thanks for that question.
So Winnie, did you want to give us your last question here before we move on to our next speaker?
Well, I wanted to respond to what Esther said, because I just read a book that deals with that whole issue of what is racism and who is racist, called How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi. And I would recommend that everyone reads it, because he redefines all of our way of looking at racism. And he says it's clearly not a feeling or an emotion. It's not hatred. It's clearly in the category of policy. If there are policies that cause inequality, then it is racist. And so we have, our whole country has a lot of policies that cause inequality. And he calls out himself and the Black community for promoting racism, because when they say like Black people just aren't trying, or we do, you know, the drug addicts are ruining our neighborhood, instead of saying, turning their eyes to what policies are causing this. So that book was very eye-opening. I'm going to read it again. I recommend everyone read it.
Can you put that in the chat? I'm sorry. Can you put that in the chat, Winnie?
Please.
I don't know how.
I'll put it in.
I don't see any buttons to push here on my
Okay,
phone.
that's all right. So you want to wrap up, Ginny? Give us your summary. And I think you already told us how to get a hold of your group with a.
Yeah, there is a link there. We'd love to have more people come along with us. I agree with Winnie. How to Be an Anti-Racist is an excellent book, very thought-provoking. And I'm just starting one called Me and White Supremacy, which is kind of a soul-searching purging type of thing. So, I mean, we can read until the cows come home, but until we change the policy, as we kind of all know, until we change racist policy and not just eliminate it, but create anti-racist policy so that there are no people without homes, so that women don't have to traffic their bodies, that they can find a way to make a living and to survive, then, you know, we will be failing. So we have to face this, and we have to change it, and we have to organize, and we have to organize together, to Esther's point.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice having you at our cyber salon. Maybe you'll come back again sometime.
Yes.
And everybody look at the email that I send out tomorrow. If you're on my email list, if you're not, send me your email. And I usually sum up the salon, and I sum up the chat, and I send everybody the links in case they missed them during the salon. So go ahead, Bob.
Just one thought. I'm co-writing a book on white supremacy in Ohio, and for OSU Press, coming out in the spring or in July. But our conclusions, of course, were the obvious that all of us know, that essentially it's built right into the DNA from the beginning of the state of Ohio, and that it is so commonplace that you know, people don't really even often think about these policies, particularly you know, the police policies, not only the shootings, but that whole war on drugs that brought it about. Okay, with that in mind, I'd like to turn to a man who understands many things, and I've known for more than 30 years, Abe Bonowitz with death penalty action. I understand he'll have to be pulling over to park someplace.
We're parked.
All right, you ready to go, Abe?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead, man.
Well, I just want to say how great it is to see so many people that I know and love, and in the front seat of the car driving while we pulled over. But Gary Whitty is here with me, and Charles Keys.
I love you.
And we all love Gary. Yes, we do. And we are on our way back to Ohio from Washington, D.C., where we Friday, we delivered more than 500,000 signatures to the Department of Justice calling for a stop to the 3 executions that are scheduled for next week. Just one part of it. Then we stayed over, and today we were part of a demonstration that was held at the Martin Luther King Memorial in Washington, D.C., where the family of Dustin Higgs had raised their voices. And you can see a link on my Facebook page, and also on the Death Penalty Action Facebook page, to the live stream of that. But here we are, possibly the last federal execution ever is going to be on Martin Luther King's birthday, of a Black man who never killed anybody. It's a legal lynching. He's not, he wasn't not there. He was present, but he didn't kill. The trigger man got a life sentence. This guy got a death sentence. We're going to kill him on Martin Luther King's birthday. So anyway, we were at a demonstration with all those folks. All of this is in the context of this federal execution spree that's been going on. And many of you know the organization I created, Death Penalty Action, was created in anticipation. We thought about it actually just about 4 years ago, right before Donald Trump was being inaugurated. We looked around and we realized that there was going to be a point where the Trump administration would resume federal executions. And we looked around and there really wasn't any organization ready to deal with this. So we created Death Penalty Action. And of course, it took them 27 months to set execution dates, and those were supposed to be a year ago in December. They got stayed, pushed back a little bit, and then they got resumed this past July. We've had 10 federal executions, and to put this in context, that is more than any president since FDR. Okay. Donald Trump is now the most executing president in the history of the country, going back to the 1940s. And as of November 19th, became the first president since Grover Cleveland, 131 years, to have a federal execution during a transition period between presidencies. This was at the end of Grover Cleveland's, he too was a one-term president. Somehow, I don't know anything about it, he was elected again after the next term. So anyway, all of that is to say, we're in this moment. And the super exciting thing is that as even in all this death, every time there's one of these executions, they're creating more abolitionists because the people they are killing, the cases are just so outrageous. And to put that in context, since December 10th, my organization has added more than 400,000 people to its rolls. Okay, we were about 26,000 people on December 9th, and today we're over 430,000. We're going to be at 500,000 at least before the end of next week. So it's amazing what's happening, and all this is in our vision has been setting us up to a place where we can actually abolish the death penalty. And I want to show you a couple of things. And actually, this is a moment for us to celebrate. I mean, especially for all of you who've been working on this issue, but anybody who's working on any issue. You know, if you want to think about a tough issue, you think about, you know, stopping the execution of people who have done some of the most horrific things you could think about. And everyone who's being killed next week, if they end up getting executed, they are guilty of horrific things or being a part of horrific things. We can't deny that. But we also can't deny their humanity. And that's why we stand up to say we're not going to execute. But I'm going to share my screen here. I want to show something to you, which is pretty remarkable if you think about it. This is brand new as of hours ago. Governor DeWine has signed, now, and we can say lots of things about Governor DeWine, but right now I'm going to say that he has signed the bill to prohibit the execution of people with severe mental illness at the time of their crime. And this is a historic moment. We have been working on this bill forever. Well, actually, we've been working on this bill since 2014, when the Ohio, the Supreme Court Joint Task Force on the Administration of Ohio's Death Penalty, they recommended a number of things. And this is not the only good news. It's the first major shift in Ohio's capital punishment law to come out of that. But I got some good news for you. We're running an abolition bill. We're going all the way in Ohio under the leadership of Ohioans to stop executions, but all of us get to pile on with whatever organizational resources we have. OTC, we haven't heard a lot from, and I got lots of things I could say about OTC, Ohioans to Stop Executions. But what I'm going to say is that they've been really focused on one piece, and that's been, and they've done it. They've developed relationships with conservatives, with Republicans, and made them see what the Republican agenda is in abolishing the death penalty. And this, of course, as you all know, is hugely strategic, because nothing happens without the Republicans in Ohio's legislature. So we now have a governor who will sign that bill. And if we put it on his desk, we have Republicans in leadership. It's actually a good thing for this issue, in my mind, that Larry Householder is still there, because Larry Householder said when he was Speaker of the House, I'm backing off on my support for the death penalty. And he started talking about conservative issues like cost and the fact that we can't figure out how to kill our prisoners and all that. Okay, I'll take it. As much as I don't like the rest of the Republican agenda, we're going to abolish the death penalty in Ohio, and we're going to abolish the death penalty in the United States, the federal death penalty and the military death penalty. And that's the other thing I want to show you, because I can say so much by just sharing this with you for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and talk about it, and I'll take your questions. Can you hear that all right? Can I get a thumbs up? Today, we are asking for abolition of the federal death penalty.
While we are in the midst of a national reckoning on racial injustice, abolishing the death penalty must be a part of that debate and that discourse, because this is a racial justice issue.
Yes.
My name is Roderick Reed. I'm the brother of Rodney Reed, an instrument on Texas death row. there's a great need for people to get involved and realize what's going on. These state-sanctioned murders, these federal-sanctioned murders, they're just that, they're murders.
When it comes to the death penalty, we stand alone among our peers, our peer nations around the world. And we're usually in the top 10, sometimes the top 5 of the most executions in the world.
Donald Trump has now executed 5 in the last couple months. He's got 1 scheduled for today, and he's got 1 scheduled for Thursday. The death penalty's got to come to an end. It's got to come to an end now.
We got to make noise. We got to be louder about this. Once people understand this is happening, they oppose it immediately. Some people think it just, was shelved in the past. Well, this administration is trying to take us back. We're not going to let them take us back. This is our country. The death penalty is inhumane, and we should not have it in these United States of America.
The death penalty only creates another grieving family, another victim, and furthers the cycle of violence. I believe that the best way to honor my brother Paul, who was murdered, is to work for the prevention of violence, not to replicate it.
The death penalty is not necessary. We know that we can be safe from dangerous offenders and hold them accountable without executions. It's what we do the vast majority of the time.
My son had 3 execution dates, and there were 3 dates where he was to be released. It is an emotional roller coaster no family should have to live through. We are all more than the worst thing we have ever done.
It is not easy to stand here before you and talk on these issues. While my brother is still on death row, we've been fighting for his life for almost 24 years, but it is a must that I do so. It is a must that we come together as a community and fight.
How we as a society treat those who are at the lowest level, the condemned, the guilty, that is the greatest reflection on who we are as human beings. So join us and please support this cause. There are real lives at stake.
I seek to enlist all of you as community builders in this third reconstruction to truly build a world that is more equitable, that is more just, that sees and affirms the humanity of everyone.
Here's the good news. A majority of Americans want to see alternatives to the death penalty. So this is the time to rise up. Join us at Death Penalty Action. Go to our website, support what we're doing, join some of our public actions. This is a time that we need to raise our voices for life, and we need to stand against death in every ugly manifestation it has, including state executions and federal executions in America.
I almost cry every time I see that. Many of you have known me for, since I was just the guy trying to sell you a t-shirt and get $5. And, I'm still astounded by how this has all gotten to it. But it's literally, I feel very much like I am just a tool of God or the spirits or whatever it is that works for you, because things just keep dropping in my lap as far as what's happening. I'll tell you just a quick story that the most recent execution before the ones next week was on December 10th, International Human Rights Day, and then December 11th. And December 11th, that evening, it started drizzling and then it started raining. As we were waiting for the final email from the Department of Corrections with the time of death and all that, we're in a field outside across the street from the federal penitentiary in Terre Haute where the executions take place. And it was just a few of us left. We move under a tree. It starts raining harder. I go to my car and everybody sort of takes off. I'm looking at my phone. I fall asleep. And 2 hours later, I wake up, the car is running. I'm like, oh, I must have been tired. I look at my phone and I'm looking at Twitter and I'm finding myself in a Twitter conversation. And I don't even know how I found this. It just sort of showed up. But I'm in a Twitter conversation with Ayanna Pressley and AOC and Ilhan and Tlaib and me, and well, not me, but Death Penalty Action. And it's Ayanna Pressley saying, thanking her squad for being the first to endorse her bill, and then thanking Death Penalty Action for mobilizing the movement. And from then until now, it has been an incredible growth of resources and just things happening. On Monday, you're going to see the introduction of the bill to abolish the death penalty from Ayanna Pressley. Representative Espaillat already introduced his. We're trying to get them to come together under one. Senator Durbin is introducing his. And by God, we're going to abolish the death penalty as part of the first 100 days agenda. It's going to, Joe Biden, of all people, declared in his campaign literature, and we're holding his feet to it, to the fire on this, and that's what we have to do, is hold Joe Biden to this. They said in their campaign webpage that they abolished, that they opposed the death penalty. They hung their hat on the possibility of wrongful executions, but they said they're going to work to abolish the federal death penalty. We also want them to abolish the military death penalty, and they're going to also incentivize the states to end the death penalty too. So this is, without a doubt, our moment.
Yay.
It is our moment. And so many of you have been a part of this forever. And so we get to grab onto what is a real potential victory for all of us in and out of this death. And I'm telling you, it's out of this horrible death, these executions. I've been either in Terre Haute or else at Black Lives Matter Plaza or the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. for each of these 10 executions. We'll be in Terre Haute all week next week. And by the way, tomorrow starting at 2 o'clock, we're starting a week-long virtual conference ending the death penalty. It's going to be voices of experience on the death penalty mixed up with what do we have to do? And really, what do we have to do? This is the best part. We just have to find the people who agree with us and get them to write to their Congress members. That's all. If that's all we do is just make sure every Congress member gets a couple dozen handwritten notes and as many emails and phone calls as we can get, but at least a bunch of handwritten notes too. We do that, we win. Questions?
Well, Abe, I just want to thank you for how relentless you have been. I go back to the early 90s with you, and
Wilford Berry.
Yeah, the stuff that you've done over the years on every major, and you were always moving somewhere to create a group, and you always, again, ended up successful. I'm really stunned because I remember when it was like Abe's crazy idea. It's like no one believed, for the most part, just a handful of people. So well done, God's good and faithful servant.
Thank you.
And Gary Whitty too, who jumped over the wall at the governor's mansion when they were going to kill.
And not only that,
Wilford.
went in Gary Whitty when they were going to kill Johnny Bird, and we tried to serve papers, and they called out the captain of the guard and armed guards to keep us from serving the warden. So Gary, again, your long history, you two, unbelievable, and looks like we'll be celebrating with you. It'd be an honor.
Are you watching this? Bob's giving you a big shout out.
There's a question. Marley Griner has a question. What would be the incentive for the state, I guess, to get rid of the death penalty?
Well, that's a good question. The incentive for any government entity to get rid of the death penalty is you save a lot of money. You save a lot of resources. You create less pain for victim family members. You create a more equitable system. Those are the basics, but really, I think I can't imagine they're going to hang out a bridge or something for Missouri when they abolish the death penalty. But they'll find something. I don't know. I haven't had that conversation yet, but I will say, the spirits move. When Ayanna Pressley was organizing a sign-on letter to Joe Biden to ask him to just say from the get-go there'll be no more executions, which he hasn't done yet. But we know that's the thing. Anyways, they asked me to help organize and get more Congress members signing on, right? And by the way, if any of you have a good relationship with Joyce Beatty, just send her a quick note and say, hey, thanks for signing on to the bills to abolish the death penalty and for your leadership on the issue. Because she's now, of course, if you didn't know, the head of the Black Caucus in the House of Representatives, a very powerful position, and she gets to use that. And if you do have a relationship with her, I don't, so connect me and let's connect with me. Let's figure that out. Anyway, when Ayanna Prescott was doing her sign-on letter, we put together a petition and we got about 20,000 signatures on over the weekend, and we delivered it the same day. And I had a connection that got me to a connection who had me put my petition straight into Ted Kaufman's hands, the head of the transition. And he handed it to Erin Ryan, his head of intergovernmental affairs, and she handed it to a staffer and said, meet with these guys. Like in 2 days, we have a meeting with the transition team. I mean, that just doesn't happen to us, right? And here it is. And that's what I'm saying. This is happening because these things keep lining up.
Okay, Leslie, you were next. Did you have a comment, question? Got to unmute. Leslie Combs, are you still there?
Unmute Leslie, going once.
Any other questions or comments for Abe? All right.
No, thank you.
Abe, it's great for you to stop the car to do this for us. We really.
But you know, I think we would have held the signal. I'm pretty impressed with it all the way. I was on the whole time until it was time for me to speak. And
you sound great. You sound almost better than some of us who are like right here in the same city.
You know, and actually, this is just through the Wi-Fi on my phone. So
amazing.
You know, technology has its pluses. And anyway, the last thing I just want to say is, look, it's on all of us. And if you go to deathpenaltyaction.org and just you'll see that video I showed you, you can share that. And you know, we're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and now TikTok too. I got to tell you, TikTok is a place. It's not just kids, it's not just 10 and 11-year-olds, it's a lot of adults, and we have raised a ton of money out of the people that have signed our petitions coming from that. I mean, literally, we're at about $1,000 a day coming in from people just who signed a petition, which is, it's crazy that this is just, it's like a spigot is opened. And so we're going to be hiring people, we're going to be hiring organizers, I got to put all this together in the next week. So if you're a person with expertise in running campaigns, let me know because I'm looking for help. So Abe at deathpenaltyaction.org. Go to the webpage, share the petition, sign, and make sure you've done that. Also, for all of us in Ohio, you know, there will be lots of stuff to do in Ohio too to make sure that we seal the deal in Ohio. And we have seen the last execution in Ohio, and we're about to see the last federal execution ever. And I'm telling you, if you want to come, Terre Haute's only 4 hours away, and I know Gary's going to be driving over at least once, and I'll be there. And if you're the kind of person that might risk arrest, let me know that too, because that's coming up on the 15th.
And you can visit Eugene Debs's house, a man who wrote Walls and Bars and called for the abolition of prisons themselves.
Yes, yes.
We should do that. We should have a field trip after the pandemic, maybe. Thank you, Abe. Thanks, Gary, too. Thank you so much, you guys. And Winnie, too, who's somewhere up there. What's that? Oh, that was Gary in the background. All right, stay safe and on the road, Mark Stansbery says. And now we are going to have a short, brief message again, hearing from Esther Flores. Are you unmuted?
Yep. Good news. We are open at the drop-in center. We finally made it. A whole year of renovation, advocacy, because we're a quasi-model, dealing with the city, building department. It was just a challenge, but now I have a life, I think. We're still going to be mobile, yet we're going to be open 40 hours a week. So those who don't know us, we are in the center of the hilltop on the corner of Wayne and Sullivan. It's legit. The address is 2424 Sullivan Avenue. We passed all the inspections. We are ADA compliant because it's considered a commercial property. And we are going to all strong, and we are looking for another site. A miracle took place last year. It ended up happening at the end of the fourth quarter. The city and county gave us funds to finish the renovation. Isn't that a miracle?
You did
And
that. How did this
also
happen?
it happened. And as quickly as the $125,000 that came through, it was gone by December the 22nd. Isn't that insane? So we're excited. We needed some funds to finish the renovations, and it got done. So as of December the 22nd, we got the okay from the city to open. So we're excited, and I just wanted to let everyone know that we are grateful for your support and the advocacy, because we need to eradicate human trafficking in our city. That's all I wanted to say.
I would really like to find out what changed these city leaders' minds, because the last time we talked to you, Mayor Ginther was snooting you.
Yeah, you were a
Yes.
troublemaker.
Well, I think it was the whole COVID. The good thing about the COVID pandemic was it actually created a heartbeat, believe it or not, in the city folks, city council too. I actually had a personal call, which I actually hung up from one of the city council because I thought it was a realtor, because I'm always getting calls. And he expressed some concerns, and he told me that a lot of the issues that they were having with our program is the fact that we were not in the city process, which is horrible, trying to go through the fundings. There's a lot of red tape. So even though I had applied for the CARES Act, for example, in the second quarter of last year, we got the funds late October or November. And then we had a deadline to complete, use the monies by November the 30th. That's kind of insane, but I'm organized. We used the money, every single penny, which was hilarious. Nothing was returned.
Sorry, I was like muted and I was admitting somebody. So gosh, Esther, I can't believe this is like turning out to be a salon with like good news after good news. It's wonderful. I can't, you got to write something up for the Free Press for us.
I will. And our numbers too. You guys will know that we broke record by the second quarter. We had already exceeded the amount of people that we served in 2019, which was over 1,800 folks. By the end of December, this is historical for us. We ended up serving 3,094 human trafficking victims, covering the four corners. That's insane. So I'm getting some of my reports finalized because this is the data that I always present to the city and the politicians, and people that need to know the, what we're doing. So I'm excited, I'm being positive, and I just want to say thank you for all of you who are advocating in one way or another for racial justice, prison reform, definitely the death penalty. So I'm excited, to see what 2021 will bring. We got to be positive and promoting peace, unity, and love.
How can people donate again? Do they go to your website?
They can look at our website, 1dl2h.org. And the organization's name is One Divine Line to Health. And we love everyone. We serve people. We've been serving a lot of children who are part of the opiate crisis. Unfortunately, they are born with developmental delays, and parents adopting, siblings, children who were murdered, who are struggle with substance abuse disorder, who lost a human trafficking sibling. It's just complicated, but we're glad that we have a home base. We have a base. So we're looking for another property so that we can expand, so that's kind of where we're at right now.
Are you looking in the Hilltop again still?
No, I'm looking more towards the east side. Our goal is to have 4 drop-in centers in each corner that is hit by human trafficking and drug trafficking. The areas that we work, where we know and hang out with.
Thank you so much, Esther. And we're so happy to hear your good news. Like you talked to us last spring and we were first hearing about
Oh my God,
your
yeah.
struggles. And now less than a year later, look where everything is. So great. Keep us.
Oh wait, and we got 2 love bugs. I forgot. They ended. We purchased another one.
All right. Is it a
It's in the shop.
All right. Great.
I forgot. That's great. So we're excited.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments for Esther?
Brian had a question. He's saying they need a center up like that up in Lyndon.
Lyndon.
Okay.
I've been advocating for that. I work in the Lyndon area, so that is one of the hardest areas that we've been working with from the beginning in the last 4.5 years. So that is something in the works. I just need to find somebody who's interested in working with us so that we can establish a drop-in center there. It has to be on Cleveland Avenue.
And it says Whitehall needs one too. We could go on and on.
Oh, I know that. James and East Main Street. I know all the corners.
Cleveland Avenue, somebody says. All right, well, great. We're going to move on then to, Bob Crazen. No. Did you have a question? No. Okay. We're going to move on. Everybody's saying, way to go. Congratulations, Esther. Stay in touch. And now it's Chuck Lynd to tell us about public banking efforts. Take it away, Chuck.
Thank you. Happy to talk about this. I would love to have some of the energy from Esther. And I would happy to have Abe take over the project and make it incredibly successful. I'll just say a couple of things. I know we're probably running late, but a lot of people are not aware. This is a little bit more abstract because it involves money and banking, and most people are kind of bored by money and banking. I see I'm on the main thing. I had a surgery thing on my nose, so it's nothing terrible, but okay. So a lot of people are not aware that there is such a thing as public banking. Many of you may have heard that the state of North Dakota is a state that's had a public bank for 100 years. It's been successful. It's a great model. And we now have, after about 7 or 8 years at the national level working for public banking, we have another one in American Samoa, which took several years to accomplish. But there's a lot of progress being made. It's actually, we call it now a public banking movement. It's a movement that's mostly in the liberal areas in California, has passed legislation to enable any municipality or entity, governmental entity, to develop a public bank, just starting. New York State is doing similar kind of work. There's activity in Colorado, New Mexico, Boulder, Vermont, some of the more liberal enclaves. And we haven't had anything really going on in Ohio. So that's the good news, is that as of last November 10, we had a launch for a informational, educational event about what public banking is, with a slideshow on how it could benefit the community. I won't go into, there's a lot of weeds with respect to how this would be actually implemented, but let me just give you one statistic. In Franklin County, every dollar that, or in Columbus, every dollar of revenue that's taken in by the city, 1/4 of it, a quarter out, 25%, automatically is funneled off to service the debt that we're paying from the bond issues that we have used to do all the various kinds of infrastructure projects and all manner of city services that are funded by bonds that go through Wall Street. So the simplest way to think of it is, hey, why couldn't we establish our own credit in the state of Ohio, in the city of Columbus, the county of Franklin? And in fact, there are a variety of areas in the city, in the state. For example, Youngstown, where we have a team member that's very involved in reimagining what the Youngstown, which is kind of the poster child for deindustrialization, They've had a huge problem there. So they want to create a green industrial hub, plant hemp, do all kinds of really cool things in Youngstown, and they're very open and think that a public bank might be possible there. So that would be a great win for us because there are no public banks in Ohio. The state, very difficult to, so as Abe mentioned, others, it's not a partisan issue. It's not a left wing or right wing. It's definitely a money issue in terms of, do you want to manage the money to invest in our local communities? And that's where we believe that a public bank could be strengthen, revitalize communities across a whole variety of issues. Bob Crazen is on here. He was at our last, at the launch meeting in November. We have another one coming up in February. But from the healthcare point of view, any issue you take, we've lost public county hospitals all through the state, been happening across the country. Why does that happen? That's, again, not to go into the weeds. This is true of, like, we have Kathy Cowan Becker, hopefully our future leader at Simply Living. We're working on that process right now. I feel comfortable in saying that that's going to happen. We're very excited to bring her on. And so what we want to do is think about it from the standpoint of, I mentioned Kathy because she's involved, most of you know, she's presented at the Salon about the Ready for 100 program, convincing the mayor and throughout the state to come up with a plan to go 100% reliance on renewable energy by 2030 or some specified date they're willing to commit to. So renewable energy, green infrastructure of all kinds, local business. This is where I kind of came from, because some of you know Simply Living's been involved with a coalition for a number of years with Local Matters, with the Economic and Community Development Institute, with Kemba credit unions, the idea of moving your money, eat local, buy local, bank local, and live local. This is the Simply Living piece. So localization is something that goes beyond the lifestyle choices that Simply Living, you may have heard about that. We're very conscious about the environmental impact of any of our everyday lifestyle actions, but we also recognize that we need policies that are going to actually implement strengthening areas to make our economies more sustainable, locally owned, keeping money in the economy. And public banks are a way to do everything from refinancing the ridiculous interest rates on student loans. For example, some people actually go to North Dakota to establish residency so they can reduce their student loan interest rate down to about 1.25%. So again, public banks can make those investments, and the interest that is charged, lower interest, it comes back to our treasury, not to Wall Street investors. So I think most of us here are probably empathetic with that. The last thing I'll say is that our goal in 2021, as we begin to plan a series of town hall events that will be virtual. This is going to be happening for a while, obviously. Our goal is to get as many co-sponsors, partners, groups, organizations that are willing to say, yes, we want to make this happen. We have a partnership now with the Amoeba, which is the American Independent Business Alliance. They happen to be a national organization that's based in Cincinnati. And Derek Peebles is the national director, and he's part of our team, and their group nationally is interested in endorsing public banking as an option to invest and provide local low interest loans, help deliver CARES Act money to locally owned businesses in a way that simply hasn't been happening, and it could be much more effectively delivered that way. So I'll
comment that kind
stop
of goes
there, but go ahead, Suzanne.
I got a comment that kind of goes along with what you just said. Can you borrow money for projects within a specific community, since the popular banks in those areas decline loan applications for small businesses and nonprofits? This came from Esther.
Absolutely. The way it works, I'll just give a quick overview. And this helps make it a little less confusing. In the state of North Dakota, the money from the state treasury is deposited in the public bank at the state level. When you actually want to apply for a loan, however, you go through a community bank or a credit union. So, and in fact, North Dakota per population has more community banks than any other state. And that's why, because your community banks are the front line of your banking. That's where you do your checking, your savings, but you also can get loans, and the community banks can get money from the state to make low interest loans for all kinds of projects in the public interest. That's the bottom line.
That answer your question, Esther?
No, we don't have one yet, but we have advocates. I've talked to Mike Stenziano, who's favored, actually talked to people at the state level, say, you guys should do this, it would help us. We had the aide for Liz Brown showed up at our last launch meeting. They're interested. So at least conceptually, that people recognize that it's just a matter of time. We can't keep doing this ridiculous system. Let's just say we have Keith Ellison now talks about monopoly capitalism. Okay, I'm not. These are all locally owned businesses. I'm all for local economic development. However, monopoly capitalism, whether it's banks, big pharma, big ag, big grocery, big office supplies, they're all run by a half a dozen large companies that have allowed to be part of this and create this global economy. And every product in the global economy has an average of 42% embedded carbon. So it's a bad thing. We need to localize is the message that Simply Living. And we've partnered with the Ohio Sustainable Business Council as part of this. They're the ones that connected us with Amoeba and the Independent Business Alliance. So our goal is to, though, create hopefully as many specific cities, like, for example, Toledo. We have a former city council person in Toledo, Mike Ferner, who's has a lot of contacts there. Toledo has also been a devastated city environment there, that whole county. Like Mahoning County, whatever the Toledo County is, I can't remember right now.
Lucas
Dayton, another area that's been devastated by all the plants being moved abroad. So we want to localize the economies. We want to localize. That's the key to sustainability. Think of sustainability not just as putting solar panels on your roof, or even community solar, which is another thing that needs investment. But think of it as the strength of a local community in terms of food and clothing, all businesses buying local food infrastructure, local farms. All of that needs to be localized. And every time we commit to make that happen, we take a bite out of the global economy, which runs on fossil fuels and is killing the ecosystems of the planet.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Bob Crazen, or maybe a comment. Go ahead.
You make me glad that I tuned in tonight. I appreciate the work you're doing on this. It's really an important thing to consider. Do you know, is the state of Ohio going to need legislation passed to enable this?
I'm sorry, I got interrupted by the stupid cell phone, but in terms of the state, I think that's what you're asking, Bob.
Do we need legislation passed by the state of Ohio to enable this?
No. Any city or any municipality, it could be MORPC as a regional thing, get all the central Ohio counties, whatever. It could be the green umbrella in Cincinnati. As long as they're committed to getting a revenue source to capitalize the bank, then it can happen. Now, at the state level, it's an interesting question. Again, it gets really weedy. The reason I'm going this co-sponsor route is because I've been monitoring the situation with the national level, the Public Banking Institute, for several years. They constantly run into resistance from the monopolies, the big banks. They we've just done it this way for so long. It's very hard to educate enough people. So we need pressure from the bottom up to tell the city council, to tell the Franklin County, the Mike Stenziano, no, we need to do this here. You have a budget. We have plenty of resources right here in Central Ohio to capitalize a bank and do these things. Because once you have the bank, you can leverage that 10 times in terms of the loans that you make. Okay, think of it that way. It's not just a loan fund. It's a bank that can leverage that capital from the bank to do all sorts of things to multiply that greatly.
So can you put, after you're done here, can you put in the chat when your next meeting is, and if you have dates for any of your upcoming events, and then if you need people to write letters,
yes, we'd love to have that. And the simplest way, chuck@simplyliving.org. I can be reached there easily. The next meeting is, just go to simplyliving.org, click on the events, or actually, if you just go to the website, it starts pouring out the events that we sponsor, one of which is this February 2nd, 1 p.m. We don't have the Zoom link yet. We're working with the Public Banking Institute. We'll have we have a copy, a recording of the first event, which anybody can watch, and it's part of the description of the event that's happening on February 2nd.
Okay, great. We're going to move on. We have gotten way so far over time, but that's okay. Thank you so much, Chuck.
Thank you.
Another positive and optimistic speaker here, which is unusual for our salons. So I think the last one we have is also positive and optimistic, and it is Mr. Mark Stansbery.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hear me? Check 1, check 2.
Yes.
Okay.
We can hear you. Did you have something you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I'm gonna,
Okay.
share something real quick here. Oop, what happened?
We got it.
All right, there we go. All right. I'm supposed to be announcing some things. We're putting out the hope that we could put together some kind of 2021 People's Forum. A lot of people have talked about many different activities that they've done, but we haven't really talked about how we're moving forward as the people of Columbus, how Columbus can move forward as a progressive. There's many different forums out there. But today's, The Color of Change came out with this. They betrayed our democracy, investigate and expel them from Congress now. So, there's that energy that's building, right? These next 10, 12 days. But after that, we got, 100 days of Biden government, right? And so community organizing centers come sort of with some of these ideas as a political agenda for a forum, possibly sometime in March or April. We're putting this out as a proposal, right? This is an announcement. I'm putting together an announcement, so it won't go real deep into this today, but like economic justice, where is this organized Ohio, Central Ohio labor, that kind of thing. Human rights, discussion, civil rights, peace, ecological balance. And then the last one is participatory democracy. And so developing a statewide network. The Columbus Free Press is a people's media center. So we're an action center as well. So, how does the media, the action, and then how do we come up with a policy that we could all put forward? We've come with, a variety of objectives that we've gotten. We know there's going to be different aspects that need to be dealt with. So this is what we're putting out, that we could put something together sometime in March or April. So if you're interested, we'll talk about it again in February. at the Free Press Salon. And anybody that's interested can get in touch with us through Community Organizing Center. That's walk@igc.org. I'll remember that again. You know, there's a lot of good activity going on all over the place, a lot of parties that are active. If you know any that you're involved with, great. Keep, you know, find yours that you're involved with and do it. Unions are out. I'm just saying, political parties and unions are very organized right now. So we need to sort of push them to get some kind of activity, right? An action that's coming up. And is Pat on to talk about this tonight, or should I talk about?
Pat's here.
So Pat, did you want to make that announcement about the 22nd?
Yeah, I'm here to talk about
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
So, well, let me know when you're done, Mark.
No, go ahead. Make that announcement.
Okay, well, I actually have two pieces of really good news. So maybe people aren't aware, but on January 22nd, the world is going to declare nuclear weapons to be illegal under international law. And some of you know I've been working on nuclear issues since 1981. And so this is happening because the UN International Treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons is going to enter into force on that day. And this treaty was negotiated back in 2017 after the input of humanitarian organizations for a decade. But it was signed by 122 nations back then. And after it was signed, it will enter into force after 50 nations have ratified it. And so the 50th nation, which was Honduras, ratified it last October, and it is actually going into force. And what that will do, let's see, it will actually prohibit the nations that have signed it from developing, testing, producing, manufacturing, transferring, possessing, stockpiling, using, or threatening to use nuclear weapons, or allowing them to be stored on their territory. So this is tremendous, and not just that, but it puts a real stigma on nuclear weapons. So we're celebrating that, and I am putting in, let's see if I'm putting in the chat a link to the Free Press article that is in there about this. And so because it's a great day to get media attention, there's a media hook. So we're holding a rally at Battelle at 1 p.m. on Friday, January 2nd. And we're going to say Battelle. People may not know that Battelle is one of the biggest promoters of nuclear technology and nuclear weapons almost in the world. They manage 6 nuclear labs around the country where the research and development is done on nuclear weapons. Yeah, so
Battelle was involved in the Manhattan Project too.
Say that again?
They were involved in the Manhattan Project, and they're also the CIA's favorite nonprofit.
But
yeah, and they've been involved in biological warfare too. So we say antivirals, not biological warfare. But anyway, I'll put a link in here for the second thing is that there's also a Free Press article that the Sierra Club that I volunteer for, and we have a committee that works on nuclear power, and at the State House for 2 years, this really bad bill that would have Ohio would have actually subsidized research and development on these quote unquote small modular reactors, which aren't small. They are advanced too. That nothing has been put. They're only theoretical. But anyway, that was an awful bill, and it had a lot of legs. And so I'll put a link in there, and you can read about how we met our small committee. We were able to reach out and got a whole lot of people around the country to put their input in. and we managed to keep it from passing. So I guess you can call it a victory. Sometimes you can call the status quo a victories.
Thank you, Pat, very much. I did put the two other pictures in here on this sign. One is, well, the announcement about January 22nd. We will be out at Patel, 505 King Avenue that day. Remind me of the hour, Pat?
1 p.m.
1 p.m. I thought it was 1. I didn't want to say wrong. Yeah, 1. And please come out. It's a great place. It's a great place to have action. I put this particular picture because I knew that Brian wanted to see the letter M in those colors. So I put that in there just for him. But the nurses were out about the PPE, and we need to continue to be about, that struggle and the, liberation movement as well. I wanted to put these last two pictures in. Due to travel restrictions this year, the United States had to organize a queue at home. All right. Just a joke. And this is a picture says 1,000 words. Why don't you leave you on that one? All right, I'm done.
Thank you, Mark. Any
Yeah.
questions or comments for any of Mark's or Pat's announcements? Sandy, Steve Caruso, did you have something?
Yeah, actually,
I don't, whoever's talking, I can't hear you.
Hi, everybody. I have a question for Bob. I am really amazed that Trump was not removed from office on Wednesday after his attempted failed coup, and he is still in power now. In any other country, they would have removed him, arrested him, or worse. But in our country, he is still sitting in office making decisions, and my main fear is he has said on numerous occasions, and there's this thing going, they want to bomb Iran by the end of his term, instigate a war with Iran, and that scares the heck out of me. So what would prevent that from happening? They're trying to instigate, and they have bombers over there already and ships parked off the Iranian coast to try to instigate them to start a war, retaliate, do something, I don't know what, but it scares the living daylights out of me. How can Trump still be in power? I mean, how can that be?
Well, because of laws, precedents at the Department of Justice in terms of sitting presidents, the process that it takes to impeach, how long, and other factors. But you're not the only one concerned, right? Nancy Pelosi dealt directly with the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the nuclear code, called them up, and then leaked the issue. And this is nothing new in U.S. history. Remember when Richard Nixon wandered the White House drunk, talking to pictures of Abe Lincoln and grabbing Henry Kissinger and saying, "Get down on your knees and prepare to pray, Jew boy," that they moved General Haig into the White House just so Nixon wouldn't have the nuclear codes. So also the National Guard was brought in by direct dealing with Pence, who has no authority whatsoever. The National Guard was directly under the President Trump. So as we speak, while he can't be impeached, people are essentially ignoring, and he's like King Lear. He's wandering the White House, raving without the power to Twitter. So you're witnessing, Shakespearean, if not biblical, things going on. And it looks like the military is just not going to obey the orders of the commander-in-chief unless it's something they're interested in attacking.
Well, they might be, because their bombers are over there. They have bomber airplanes going over there all the time. And it's just like their agenda. And the other thing is Mitch McConnell has declared that the Senate is on vacation until the 19th. So let's say the impeachment, the impeachment starts and is passed Monday or Tuesday. When they go to pass it on to the Senate, they're on vacation.
Right. Yeah, they're doing all they can to prevent that probably. But I also feel like, I hope Bob's right, that they're surrounding Trump with enough mature adults that would prevent him from doing anything really bad.
God damn it.
Ooh.
My fear is as long as Pompeo's there, he wants a war with
Get
Iran.
off!
Somebody having a problem?
I am.
All right, so Sandy had a.
Thank you, Bob.
All right.
Yeah, nice
1
talking
minute.
to you, Connie. Sandy, you want to give your announcement real quick before we wrap this thing up?
Yes, first of all, this has been a great, they're all great, but this has been a really, on a really positive, there's so many good things happening. But of course, in the United States, it always comes after lots of terrible things happen. We don't learn our lessons until the damage has been done for so many others. So, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting time to live because we can do things. The announcement is that Move to Amend Central Ohio is having another one of our Speaking of Democracy sessions, and it's going to be Thursday, January 21st. Oh, I think I posted it. Do you see it posted? I think I see it. Okay. So it's January 21st. This is an important date. January 21st is the date 11 years ago when Citizens United versus the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, was judged in favor of Citizens United, which is the biggest misnomer ever. Citizens United was these corporate bankers for the Koch brothers and other billionaires. So most of you guys know Citizens United. If you don't, you can contact me. And I've got I put the link there where you can get the registration, but Greg Coleridge who's this, if you don't know him, he's very well-spoken activist forever. And he's going to give a rundown of the history of Citizens United, what caused it. I mean, it's not Citizens United the only thing. It's been going on for a long time where corporations have had personhood rights, constitutional rights. And then he'll talk about what we can, what the legacy is, what's happened since then, including, I would say, what happened on Wednesday, and how is this possible, and then also a solution for it, which is Move to Men and how Move to Men got started, which is at the same time. So that's it. I hope I didn't take much more of my 1 minute, but there you go. I hope everybody can join. I've got a website. You can always chat with me, and it's on the Facebook site also, Facebook Central Ohio Move to Men. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy. Nice to see ya. Well, that's our final word for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's really nice to see everybody. Brian Curtis, what do you have to say?
I think WCRS is back on the air. The computer at our transmitter died on Thursday. Rob and Eugene worked around the clock. Hopefully we're still on the air right now, but it's 2021 and we have computers that are still old as dirt. And then also, I'm gonna turn this around real quick. Monday, you know who to root for.
Oh my God.
Roll Tide.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we know.
I knew you were there.
And 2021 is a big year for the DJBC Happy Hour, which is turning in
6?
In April, 10 in April.
Yay, congratulations, Brian. Everybody
talk
tune
about that
in.
at the April Salon, but
What time does your show play?
Monday at 8, but I'm not doing the show this week. In fact, I scheduled like an hour full of musical bridges so I could watch.
We know.
These guys won the national championship.
All right. Well, Bob Ream, nice to see you. Waving to Bob Ream.
But Wednesday, I'm going to say this, that I'm surprised Trump is still president. With like 10 and a half days to go, as Mrs. Caruso pointed out, he can still do damage control. It's like climax, the big orgasm at the end. He wants it to happen. We cannot let it happen.
You're correct. But I mean, we hope other people around him aren't gonna let it happen.
Who's left? Who's left in that cabinet? Because the cupboard is air in the last 10, 11 days.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people jump ship.
But then soon,
Cabinet is empty.
But on the 21st, they can file state charges against him in New York.
Right on.
I see